welcome back to my channel. My name is Shaki and today I'm going to be recommending myself some books based on my phases in my life. So I got this inspiration very much so from Emma Books, as a lot of you probably know. I will leave her original video down below, but I was really inspired by her and the way that she just kind of recommended herself books based on her experiences. And so I'm going to do that today. The first phase that I really had was an emo phase. I definitely had like a wannabe emo phase. I didn't have full bangs or anything. I didn't dye my hair black, but it was just like the music I listened to and the way that I tried to dress and the way I tried to style my hair. So the book, or rather book series, that I would recommend to myself during this phase would have to be the Arc of Scythe series. The Arc of Scythe series consists of Scythe, Thunderhead and the Toll, and they basically surround a world where we are past the age of morality and we have conquered death. The only way to kind of like manage the population is to have these beings, these majestic and authoritative beings called scythes, who glean or rather kill people. I think I'd recommend myself this book in particular just because I was an emo, because I was just in a like period of my life, stage of my life, where I would just think about death quite a lot and like, where do we go when we die? And I just became very sad all of a sudden and very depressed about it. So I would suggest myself at that time reading Scythe, because it has a lot to do with death in it and the fact that we can control death in our lives and what would happen if we no longer did die. Because I'm scared of it. I'm still scared of it now, but I'm not an emo anymore, unfortunately. Or fortunately, depending on which way you look at it. The next stage of my life is one that is quite sensitive and close to my heart. It is the closeted stage. Obviously, me being bisexual is not inherently a stage or a phase in my life, because I'm still very much bi, and being bi or having any sexuality or gender identity is absolutely not a phase. But I did have a phase in my life, especially in my early teenhood, where I was very closeted, very internally lesbophobic and also biphobic as well. I just didn't know who I wanted to love. I didn't know if I was gay, straight, bi, pan, anything. I just didn't really understand any of it. And while I was in the closet, I did kind of mess around a lot of my friends and put strains on our relationship because of me not really knowing what sexuality that I was. So I've got quite a lot of books to recommend myself on my shelves, but I do have the specific ones that I have picked out. The first one is Autobiography by Christina Lauren. This has a bisexual main character specifically, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to recommend this to myself. This is all about our main protagonist, Tanner, whose family used to be Mormon, but they still live in a Mormon society, and he's bisexual and his family are all okay with it, but he still goes to the Mormon school and they're not okay with it. He has to take a class where he gets extra credit, and in this class they have to write a whole novel. He gets help from ex-student Sebastian, who is a little bit more like frisky and flirty than, you know, Tanner imagined, and they have this love affair full of self-discovery, being closeted, and religion's relationship with sexuality as well. And I found that very interesting and also very relatable. I think the biggest reason why I would recommend myself this in that kind of phase or stage of my life is because Tanner is bisexual and not gay, and I feel like we don't have a lot of bisexual rep in the whole LGBTQ plus books sphere. I know we don't have a lot of LGBTQ books period, but there aren't a lot of bisexual orientated ones, and this is one of those books that is bisexually orientated, and I really enjoyed it and found it really relatable. So maybe if I had read this, I wouldn't have been such a knob in my closeted phase. The next two books I would recommend myself in the closeted phase are Heartstopper Volume 1 and Volume 2, both by Alice Oseman, because these books are so adorable and I love them a heck of a lot. Obviously I can't really go into what Volume 2 is about because that is spoilers for Volume 1, but it's basically about these two guys, these two boys, who have the most purest and softest relationship ever. Our main character is in a very abusive relationship at the beginning, and he gets out of it and has help from his new best friend and boyfriend, and it is just the sweetest graphic novel I have ever read, and I would just highly recommend this to anyone, not just myself but also anybody, because these books are adorable and would have helped me if they were published at that time that I needed them the most. The next book that I'm recommending to this phase of my life, the person I was in this phase of my life being closeted, is also a book that centers around bisexual characters or just a character, and that is The Quiet at the End of the World by Lauren James. Now this wasn't my favourite book in the world. I've read it quite recently and it has received a lot of hype here on BookTube, but I just wasn't a big fan of the romance romance, and it really just put it down in my mind. This is basically about our two main characters, Laurie and Shen, who are the last living people alive on Earth after a disease that has caused infertility wipes the nation, and the main characters of this novel are two of the last people born from the frozen eggs that they had before the infertility struck. The reason why I specifically would make myself read this and recommend this profusely to myself isn't necessarily for the storytelling or the characters, it is for the bisexual or more specifically diversity rep. There is so much effortless and seamless representation in this book. We have a hard of hearing main character, and we also have a side trans character, and also the main character, the main hero, is bisexual, and she says this with the most freedom. And I think I would recommend this to myself when I was closeted, because those two books I just recommended to myself are contemporary books, and I really want to show myself, especially when I was closeted, that people in fantasy books can also be bisexual as well, not just contemporary, and that is really important. This book did that really well, probably the only thing that it did well. The next phase in my life is kind of more personal to me. I don't think a lot of people will relate to this, but I have named it Being a Bookworm is My Sister's Thing phase. Basically, I used to think that I had to be the most original human being ever, Aquarius moon, hello, and that reading was my sister's thing and I couldn't also enjoy it. But that is utter bullshit. I could have read this entire time and she wouldn't have given two flying shits. I just thought at the time that it was her thing and I needed to find my own thing, and decided not to read or even try it. I should have tried it because I absolutely love reading now, and I would have loved reading then as well. The book, or rather series again, that I am going to recommend to myself, my sister and her friends spoke about all the time, and that is The Mortal Instruments, obviously by Cassandra Clare. They spoke about this in school so often and be so left out, not know what's going on, and thought, oh, reading is for my sister, it's not for me, I can't do it, which is such an idiotic way of viewing reading and such a toxic mindset. When I finally actually started reading for myself and realised that, you know, my sister doesn't own reading and I could still read if I really wanted to, I read the entirety of the Mortal Instruments series recently. I recently just finished. I've also read The Infernal Devices, and I love them. I absolutely love them, and I can't help but think what would have happened if I had read these when I was in school. Would it change everything? Would I be a different person right now? Would I be quicker at reading? Would I be big on booktube now? What would have happened if I had read these books at that time? What would have fucking happened? Would my life be completely different? So that's why I recommend these books to my younger self, or rather the phase of my sister owns reading, because spoiler alert, you can like things other people like, doesn't mean that they invented them. You can have your own stuff as well. So this next phase is a little bit difficult to explain, but I have called it the breakup phase. Now, I had a really emotionally heavy and draining breakup in the summer of 2016 when I left school. It changed me as a person for two reasons, and I'm going to recommend books based on these two reasons. The first basis of recommendation that I'm going to give is more tailored towards my mental health at the time. I was really depressed and really sad, and I thought that no one else was going to love me, and I was also in the height of my eating disorder. So I would recommend two books for this person who I used to be in this phase. I would recommend two books to this person that I used to be, and that is What I Lost by Alexandra Ballard and also Paperweight by Meg Haston. These two books I'm pretty sure were mentioned in my TikTok book tag, where I had to recommend a book to my younger self, and this is kind of like the inspiration for that video. So these two I would definitely recommend to that person who I used to be in that time. I was really emotionally fragile, and I had a lot going on with my body image, putting on weight, losing weight, and I think these two books surrounding people with eating disorders in treatment and all the things and wisdom it came from these books that I learned even now would have been really useful at the time. The second basis for recommendation is more about self-love and self-care. So I lost a lot of my self-respect and self-worth and self-care when this certain person broke up with me, and everything is fine now. I'm 100% over it, but I'm not gonna lie, I was a shell of a person for a very long time, and so I'm gonna recommend two books again that would put me out of that and help me with that faster. Again, we've got two novels for this one as well. We've got one of my favourite books of all time, The Nowhere Girls by Amy Reed, a book that I reread every single year, and we also have a poetry collection which is The Witch Doesn't Burn in This One by Amanda Lovelace. So both of these are very feminist-esque, and this is the period of my life that I properly got into feminism. This is about a town where a girl called Lucy was raped and no one believed her, and so Lucy's family moved, meaning that Grace's family moved in, and so Grace is now living in the room of Lucy, who was raped and no one believed her, and she really wants to get justice for her. Although I have never actually experienced something as horrible as rape, I really would have recommended myself this just for the feminist aspect, because it is littered with intersectional feminism, and this is the kind of time that I was getting interested in it. The same goes for The Witch Doesn't Burn in this one. This is part of like the fairy tale-esque retelling poetry collections kind of thing that Amanda Lovelace writes, and I absolutely love them all so much. I read this for the first time this year. Me and my sister both own them and both love them. I really think I needed poetry like this back in the day that's really empowering, really about recovery and about self-love and breakups and body image. I really could have used this and this book, both of them, I would recommend to myself profusely. Like, read these books, Ultra Kira, read them and read them and read them and love them, because I do now. The last phase, I'm sure you'll be pleased to know, is a bit more of a positive one, and this is the fangirl phase. So this phase I would describe as me being absolutely obsessed with YouTubers, band members, the Janoskians, you name it, I was probably obsessed with them. I also have 2 book recommendations for this phase of my life as well, like most of the ones that I have talked about. The first one is I Was Born for This by Alice Oseman. There's a lot of Alice Oseman in here. Wow, I wonder what. Although this wasn't my favourite book, I did feel like I related to it quite a lot. Being someone who used to be actually obsessed with bands and the Janoskians in particular, and I acted as crazy as the fans in this one, like I actually really did. I thought that they saved my life, but really they were just ordinary people. And this book is basically about Angel, who's also obsessed with a band called The Ark. And on the one hand, we follow Angel and her friend who are staying with each other and going to their concert, and how obsessed Angel is with them. But we also, on the other hand, have the perspective of one of the band members, or the band members in general, Johnny, who is the main like singer of the band, and he kind of tells his story as a trans man, and also from the point of view of somebody with raging fans and how it really feels to have that. And honestly, it made me think when I read this about the time I was obsessed with, you know, YouTubers, Janoskians, all that stuff, and how obsessive I actually was, and maybe how overwhelming that was for other people to watch and for the people I was obsessing over to feel. I have toned down on my fangirling quite a lot, but I am still a really big fangirl at heart, and that means I would recommend this profusely to myself in this phase of my life. The second book I'll be recommending to this phase of my life, and also the last book in this whole video, is Cat and Meg Conquer the World by Anna Primaza. I think that's how you say her name. I'm so sorry if I butchered that. This is basically about 2 girls who meet online but actually know each other in real life, which is a really big thing that happened in my life at the time. But Kat has anxiety and Meg have ADHD, and they kind of have to like be friends around that, and also around their obsession with a video game, and a video game streamer more in particular. I really loved this when I read this. There were a few problems with it, but I really did like the video game aspect, and the friendship aspect, and also the representation was amazing. So I would also recommend myself for the anxiety rep as well, because I felt so seen while reading this. But I would also recommend this for this phase of my life, because as well as being in fandom, you kind of like have a lot of internet friends, and this is kind of focused on that. A lot of the time the adults in my life were telling me that internet friends didn't count, and they were just paedophiles trying to groom me, and they were old creepy men that were going to meet me in the fucking park, but really they were just young girls like I was, and I really appreciated that, and this kind of captured that essence for me, and I really recommend me to read this and to kind of seal the rep, and also know that video games can be for girls as well. So those are all of my kind of like recommendations for other phases in my life. It's a really confusing concept, but when you get started you kind of can't stop. I really enjoyed filming this and making this and planning this. I really hope that you enjoyed watching. Thank you so much to Emma for being creative and creating with this. Again, I will leave her original video down below. Also, thank you so much to you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you want to, if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next week for another video.